This is the Michael Bryan Show. Hi everyone, welcome back to the show, and today I am joined with Kelly Powell, who is the CEO at Community Partners of South Florida, and we are discussing everything from homelessness, what we can do about it, and how it even links to mental health as well. So Kelly, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be able to talk about this and share more with the community about what's going on with so many of our families.
So I thought we'd start with a little bit about your background, really. How did you get involved in this? Did you start small, build up? What was your story like?
Yes, so I've always been, my entire life, I have been a public health practitioner. I actually started in the area of injury prevention for children, but worked for an organization that looked at family issues in a more comprehensive level, and have been with my company, Community Partners of South Florida, in Palm Beach County, Florida, for almost 17 years. And from working in a comprehensive organization, we focus on community needs, mental health, and housing. And so over time, I always say I grew up in the company, and now I'm our CEO for the past little over 2 years. I have an opportunity every single day to address some of the most critical needs in our community, and I am so fortunate for that opportunity.
So when we think of the current crisis that becomes homelessness, I guess, because I know people will have different stories about what it is. People will see people on the streets and think that's all that means. So break it down a little bit, Kelly. What is homelessness? At what point do we start calling ourselves a homeless person?
Yeah, the definition is quite broad, and many people think it's the person we see on the side of the road that may be asking for money, or you see the small camps and tents of people living there. But homelessness begins as soon as you are no longer able to lay in a bed that you own, and you cannot have a roof over your head that you either rent or own. And it happens so quickly from stability to homelessness. And then we enter into what's called couch surfing, oftentimes living in their car and just trying to find a place to lay their head until they can figure out what to do.
That must be quite a fear-provoking thing as well, because there'll be people, especially if let's say they're of an age where they're trying to get onto the housing ladder, sometimes the time and deadlines and their desire to get their own place can sometimes creep up on them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then they're faced with so many other challenges. Once you're homeless, there's so many barriers to get back into stability. For example, think about where all your papers are in your house. Say you're evicted and you can't get your papers out of your house, or you're in a bad relationship and everything's in that person's home and you're kicked out. Sometimes you don't even have your birth certificate or your social security card. So now you're looking at, how do I get a job? I don't have any papers. How do I obtain my first, last, and security? And maybe you have bad credit. So we find that the barriers start to stack up, which creates that chronic homelessness.
And then I suppose in some ways being able to solve some of those, because there are boxes to tick, I guess, when you're trying to get your first home, you can't just have one or two of these things. You need to tick these boxes, but also tick them well. You can't have almost enough to be able to pay for it, and then someone will find a way. It's quite a strict set of guidelines or rules to adhere to.
Absolutely. It's interesting. So we are a HUD certified counseling and nonprofit lender. So our whole goal is to create stability in first-time home buyers. And I literally was talking with one of my teammates yesterday, and she was showing me the checklist of items that each person needs to be able to obtain a home. And, it really is unfortunate, but sometimes when you're in lower income brackets, there's more hurdles. And because oftentimes there may be bad credit or things such as that. So, yeah, the checklist is long, and it's the word I can almost get there. That's very discouraging. It's unfortunate that people have those barriers, that they're so close, but yet so far.
It's interesting that you actually brought up that for, let's just say, lower income families or communities, they have more barriers than those that aren't. Why is that? Where do you suppose that comes from?
It really is all based on our life behaviors. And if you've grown up in a low income community, you may not have had an opportunity to establish good credit. You may not have had the opportunity to have a bank account with stability. Oftentimes, you may not have the opportunity to have the same education as a community that has more privilege. It's very real and it's very true. We find that zip codes really determine the social determinants of health of a human, how their health is going to be, what their income can be, and what their outcomes will be. There's research behind this that really shows that. And our organization is trying to change that. We're trying to break down those barriers and say every zip code has the same ability to change outcomes. And our goal is to make that happen. But there are barriers. It's what zip code you're born in does make a difference.
I've never quite thought about it like that, but I suppose in some ways someone has to have a way of predicting the outcome, I suppose. Like how trustworthy are you, how reliable you are, I guess, whether it's as a homeowner or as a tenant. So is it where we need different ways of knowing that, different ways of being able to trust these people for things to really change?
Trust is both ways. Many of our clients don't trust systems. They have been failed by school districts. They have been failed by banks. They have been failed by economic opportunity. And I mean, we're all human. And once things start failing you, you put your back up to it. Like you're not going to do some of the traditional things. So trust is a really big part of it. And that's something that our organization, many of the organizations like us across the nation do, is we're trying to help educate our residents to learn how to trust systems so they can move forward in life, have better economic outcome, create generational wealth, really have, we don't have a survey or we don't do data based on happiness, but really that's what life is about. Are you happy? Do you go home in the evening and you're happy with your home? You're happy with your family. You're happy with what's in your bank. And our goal is really helping people find their happiness.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because it's making me think of ways of creating that trust, both from a person standpoint, but also whether it be housing associations, a bank maybe as well. What are some of the things that we can do to help create more trust or belief in the system or even belief in the people that are trying to establish themselves?
One of the things we do as an organization is we create space to bring system leaders together with our residents. Communities that have resident-led boards or resident-led voice, it really does make a difference. HOAs can be a great thing and they can be, they can also have rules that people don't love, but having a space where residents have a voice to say, we need this in our community, we deserve this. Right here in our community of Riviera Beach, our residents did not have primary health care. They would have to travel to other cities, and Palm Beach County is very populated. It's like 1.6 million people. So we're not shy of any service. But this particular city didn't have any primary health care. And so we created a space to have resident voice and decide we deserve primary health care. We shouldn't have to take a day's work off to take our child to the dentist or take our child to see the pediatrician because I have to drive an hour and then wait an hour. And, by the time I get back, I'm losing money. I can't work if I have to take my child or myself to the doctors. So the best way to create resident or to create trust is to have resident voice say, this is what we need to be healthy and successful in our community, to be well off in our community, to have the resources we deserve. And so it took years. It took about 4 to 5 years. But this past year, we now have a functioning health center in Riviera Beach that the residents can go to receive OB, primary health, mental health, and pediatrician services along with dental. by telling the residents, speaking up and telling the community what they needed, we were able to connect with funds and resources and providers and bring those services right into their community. So resident voice is a great way to create trust.
That's an interesting point as well, because it makes me wonder if it will improve to the point where there won't be a lot of homelessness, but then it's also making me think that maybe there's something else going on. Maybe you're not completely losing at life if you're homeless. Maybe there are some benefits. Maybe there's a reason why people go into that system rather than owning their own home. Do you think there's anything else going on?
If you don't have the ability to save money, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, if you're struggling with good, healthy employment that covers your bills, the rule of thumb is only a third of your paycheck should go to your mortgage or rent. And so many of our residents throughout the United States now, because of cost of living has gone up considerably and the job market, the market rate hasn't improved as quickly. Many of our residents in the United States are paying close to half of their paycheck to just their rent or mortgage. That makes it very difficult to save and be able to create that sustainability. So I would say our financial situations for many of our residents in the United States, it's the financial that's making the struggle hard.
I can definitely see that being difficult as well. If you think of, as you said, half, possibly more than half, just going towards a roof over your head or a bed to sleep on, it's so hard to establish anything else, whether it's save or even eat a decent meal in some cases. So is there like a minimum effective amount that people would need? It kind of speaks to a different fork in the road of it's not just about the home situation, but also the job and career situation as well.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it varies from place to place. Um, we have a very high income community, so that changes our average median income. I think being able to follow that basis of only a third of your pay should be going to the actual rent or mortgage. I think that's a really good number and a way to start. How do you save? How do you manage your finances for one, day-to-day stability, but two, for security long term? If you can make enough money to cover your rent or mortgage at only a third of what you're bringing in, you have a better outcome moving forward. So that's a good formula for people to remember, is just a third should be going to your rent or mortgage. If you're finding that it's much higher, it might be time to look for another place. It might be time to see if there's a way to talk with your landlord about reducing it, even if it's temporary, just to kind of get ahead a little bit. I know that's unrealistic, but there are good landlords out there that are willing to work with they want to keep their places nice. And if they have good renters, they want to make sure that they're happy too. So it's worth a conversation. You never know.
That's very true. I guess you never really know unless you ask. I'm
That is
wondering,
true.
yeah, if they can't do that, how could the average person get to a state where it is just a third of their income is covering it? It links to minimum wage in a way as well. Like if that stays where it is and everything else goes up, eventually you'll simply price people out of the ladder.
Yeah, there's a lot of programs throughout the nation. We run one ourselves that is based on moving people out of poverty, but also really looking at their economic development. So helping people get connected to programs that have better careers, more income, more stable income. Get with a financial coach. Many of the nonprofits and all of the banks have financial coaches. Let them look at your income. Let them look at your expenses and say, okay, let's see what we can do here to make it more manageable. It might be a refi on something. It might be changing some of your grocery habits or shopping habits, teaching people how to even save a little money each month. So all those programs, like the banks and the nonprofits that have financial coaching or programs that help with economic development, those are at no cost to a community member. This is not a financial planner. This is a coach that really can help you identify how to create stability.
So hard when you mention the words like quick fixes and any simple things that people can do. But I guess in some ways there are some simple things people might be able to do because you mentioned simply reducing your expenses could leave a lot more on the table that you could then go towards the things that you need. Is it that simple, do you think? Or because some people would be stuck at a same income level for a long time because they don't know how to increase it.
Yep. I'm going to say it's not that simple, but it is realistic. So let me give you an example of a family we worked with. We were working with a family who was 200% below the poverty line, husband, wife, and three little children. And they worked with us for 5 years, repairing credit, changing their spending, improving their employment by getting some job coaching and also learning to save. We were able to connect them with down payment assistance from a local city, and they are now homeowners. From 200% below the poverty line to now homeowners that are, and I always say this, when you're a homeowner, your voice is different. You have more stability, but you also are now part of a community. So those are the stories that really inspire us. So when you say, is it that simple? It's not simple. It's a lot of hard work and it's not going to be fast. But if a person commits, they can reach their goals.
That's definitely a powerful story as well, Kelly, to be able to go from so far, I guess, below what they would need all the way to being a homeowner. It's making me think, are there any major benefits to being a homeowner? So if you were sat in front of someone and you had to, quote unquote, convince them that being a homeowner was a good idea, what are some of the things that you would say to them?
The number one reason to become a homeowner is to create generational wealth. This is money that's passed down to your children, equity for your children, equity for opportunity for college, equity to improve your health and outcomes. So we always recommend everyone work towards home ownership because you're creating that generational wealth. That's what America was built on.
So if you think about things like that, it's making me wonder, that's probably one of the best investments that you can make is in a home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then that money stays within your family. My husband and I have two daughters, and we know when we're gone what they're going to get and what that will do to spark their futures, right? Whether they sell the house and divide it or one lives in it and buys the other one out, that's their decisions. But that's equity that we're passing on to our children so they can be better parents, have more stability for their families when they create them. That's what it's about, is creating opportunity for our families and ensuring that we change that zip code mindset, that depending on the zip, no, if you have wealth in your community and your family, your outcomes are going to be better.
Is there anything that it's on par with in terms of investments? Because we've not really touched a lot on the idea of generational wealth just in this conversation, but it sounds like there isn't a whole lot that's better than that, where you can pass it through the family and people after you, generations after you, will benefit.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best way to be able to create sustainability for your family. The other way to recommend is if your company offers a 401k or a 403b or some type of retirement plan, even if you're entering the workforce at 25, start investing, right? By the time you're in your senior years, between your equity in your home and your retirement, you don't have to make a lot to get a lot, and you can turn that around and have 1 million in the bank by the time you're 65 between equity and retirement. So it's changing mindsets and this is really hard because, now we have online shopping and social media and everything is immediate. We have immediate gratification in the world we live in now. And it's really hard to teach people to not think about immediate gratification, but put some away. Start saving when you're young. Start saving when you're young. Invest with your 401k, your 403b, whatever your retirement plan is, and it will yield great returns for you as you're older, even if you don't make a lot.
Do you find then that this becomes more of a, I guess, a mindset issue? Because you'd have to have, let's say, a career or a job first to then have some elements of the stability that we've mentioned, this idea of having a little bit more left over so that you could save it, possibly put it into a 401k, retirement fund, those sorts of things as well. What would you say was the first thing that people need to be able to start this? Because a lot of people tend to possibly even get ahead of themselves a little bit. But what's the first thing? What's the big needle movers that people need?
The big needle move is trust. They have to believe the person they're talking to is giving them the right advice. Again, we're facing that immediate gratification. Once you can get the trust and show them that there is a benefit to doing this, it's changing behavior. And that's one of the hardest things in the world is changing behavior. Everyone knows, people diet their whole lives and they're trying to change behaviors. It's very hard to change your behavior. But making a commitment to yourself and saying, okay, even if I can only put $25 away a month, that's $25 that's going to gain interest over time. So yes, it's mindset, it's behavior, it's trust. It's oftentimes, and that's why I mentioned financial coaches and most nonprofits that do any type of housing. So no matter where you live, if there's a nonprofit that focuses on housing, they have a financial coach and they will build that trust with the person, help them learn how to change their behaviors and mindset so they can change their outcomes. There's executive coaches, there's health coaches. Why is it a different mindset when it comes to a financial coach? It's the same idea. It's someone who's going to help us meet our own goals.
So I know that we've mentioned mindset a few times, and I wonder if there is a link between housing and stability and things we mentioned so far and mental health. Is there a link? What's the relationship like between those two things?
Oh, there absolutely is. Not in every situation. It's not a one size fits all, but we definitely see, if you think about it, if your car doesn't have gas, it doesn't go, it doesn't move. When you're mentally depleted, whether it's stress, anxiety, it doesn't have to be like what people think when they think mental health. We are all dealing with mental health every single day. Anxiety, stress, worry, depression. There's so many different levels to it. But when your car doesn't have gas, it doesn't go. And when your body isn't getting what it needs, it's not going to perform the same way. It's very similar to a car. So when we're suffering from anxiety or depression, someone who's suffering from depression, it's hard to get out of bed and go to work. It doesn't always start with mental health that ends up in homelessness. And it also doesn't always start with homelessness that ends up with mental health, but there's definitely a connection. If you don't have a place to lay your head at night, you're going to have stress. You're going to have depression. You're going to have anxiety, right? So it could go either way, but there is 100% a connection between mental health and homelessness.
Would you say that the opposite was right, meaning that homeowners have a particular mindset and a degree of mental health, or am I wrong in saying that?
I think homeowners also have a degree of mental health worries. Um, Obviously, once you get a home and you have a mortgage, it's not like you can just get out and you don't want to lose that. So there's a different level of stress of ensuring that you're maintaining the ability to stay in a home. Um, the research shows so many people are living one paycheck away from being completely broke, not having a safety net. And that's why that whole mindset of at least get 3 months worth of your mortgage or rent in savings. At least try to do that for a security blanket. We have so many times people come to us. This is so interesting, and it's not something you would ever think of. A lot of times where people's problems start, it's something so small. For example, my car broke down and the repairs were like $3,000. And so then I couldn't pay my rent. But they need their car to get to work. And then in the mind, okay, I'll be able to cover my rent if I do this, this, and this, and it just never happens. So it doesn't have to be that everything is falling apart to end up in a situation that you're going, how did I get here? It could be something as easy as an emergency that you weren't expecting that now you have to pay for. Or perhaps you became sick and ended up in the hospital for several weeks and you lost your job because of that. And now you're behind in rent because you've not worked for almost a month or so. And it just starts that downward spiral.
That makes sense, actually. It makes me think of it's such a complicated matter as well. If you mentioned if you're ill, then you can't work, and then unfortunately you could end up losing your job because of that, and you might not find out until you get back home after you've been in hospital, and it's so easy for life to take such a turn like that, isn't it? Where it could happen to anyone.
Oh, anyone. Like none of us are free of those emergencies, whatever they may be. Life can change in an instant. And that's why we really try to help people understand you need a safety net. I don't care who you are, you need a safety net to get through those rough patches.
How important would you say mental health was to this process then? It seems like you need to have a certain level of confidence to be able to get, let's just say, your first job or something that's got an earning potential that could cover a house as well. Almost like you need all of it. You can't just have one or the other, but paint a bit of a picture in terms of how important mental health is, where does it sit, and how do you actually benefit from having reasonably strong mental health, and what are some of the repercussions?
Everything is based on our mental health. You know, your confidence is part of your mental health. If you believe you can, you will. If you believe you won't, you can't, you won't. So having strong beliefs in your mental health, taking time to decompress, taking time to, some people meditate, some people just need quiet space, some people do exercise, whatever it takes for you to recharge yourself, recharge your mental health, connect with yourself. We do live in a very different world now where everything is given to us through our phones, through a computer. The way we interact with people is different. You think about all of that, and especially our younger population that grew up this way, the way they interact with the world is so different. So ensuring that you're taking care of yourself, when you get on an airplane, they always say, put the oxygen mask on yourself before helping others. And I always think of the oxygen mask as your mental health. Always take care of yourself first so you can handle the things in life that are coming your way.
Have you found anything to be of a real benefit to mental health? Because I imagine there'd be lots of pressure that comes along with it, possibly a negative relationship some people have with the term mental health that can have its own problems as well. But what are some of the things that can benefit your mental health moving forward?
Oh, there's so many. The great news is people are talking about mental health now. So that is a huge win. Many years ago it was taboo. We didn't talk about mental health. There was a stigma around it. One of the best things you can do is have a therapist. And, for an organization like us, we provide therapy at no cost or low cost, depending on your insurance. And if you're not insured, we get it covered. It's not back where you have to have private. If you can afford private, great. But if you can't, there's programs out there. So get a therapist, someone to talk to, someone that is not going to have a biased opinion. When you go to a friend, they're going to side with you or might feed your mental health issues because they may be suffering themselves. So I always recommend one of the biggest benefits is get a therapist, have someone to talk to. And if you're not sure if you need someone to talk to, most organizations offer what's called EAP, Employee Assistance Program. And through your EAP, which you can find out through your Human Resources Department, typically somewhere from 3 to 5 sessions with a therapist are covered at no cost. And that might be good for someone who just doesn't know if they think they need help, or do they really think they should talk to someone? Is this the best rate? So that might be a way to start. Another thing that research has shown that really supports mental health is exercise, whether it's walking or stretching or, the gym, somewhere where you're physically using your body and releasing those positive endorphins and healthy endorphins, that helps a lot. And that is a great benefit to your mental health as well. Reducing your alcohol, reducing smoking, taking care of your health, eating well, all of that affects your mental health as well. So some of the benefits is self-care. That's the whole, everything I just said is wrapped up in one word, self-care.
Do you find then that there's a link between that and, let's say, someone's ability to do it? So, one little spanner in the works could be if you're struggling, let's say you're anxious all the time, or perhaps you're depressed along those lines, that it can be difficult to start these things. It can be difficult to start to get this ball rolling in terms of how much self-care you're able to do, or maybe even just your motivation or desire to try it for the first time and see how it
Oh,
goes.
yes. 100%, absolutely. 100%. We know all the things that can help. Getting to the help is sometimes the most difficult part. If you have friends who are suffering, be patient, have grace, but don't give up on trying to get them connected to help. And that's why I always say a therapist is your first lifeline because they're the ones that are going to help you work on your self-care, work on reducing your stress, reducing your anxiety, connecting to you things that are going to help you. So it is very difficult when you're down and out. It's very difficult to get to that stage. And oftentimes that's when we start seeing that spiral of issues come in. And the more the issues spiral, the harder it is to get healthy, whether it's food, housing, mental health. It's that spiral that hurts people. So I always recommend take a leap of faith and just make a call, right? Just make a call. Call your sheriff's department or police department non-emergency number and say, hey, who can I reach out to? Who in the community can I reach out to talk to? If you have a helpline, for example, we have 211 as our helpline. If there's a helpline, call that. There's a suicide line now. Call that and say, look, I just need to talk to someone. They're going to connect you with resources immediately. But that is the hardest part is going, okay, I think I need help. I think I'm at a point where I need help. So that's why I'm so happy that the norm now is you hear it on the radio, you hear it on podcasts, you hear it on TV, see it on social media. Talking about mental health has become the norm, and that is such a step in the right direction.
I completely agree with that because I actually remember a time when it was almost not just discouraged, but very frowned upon to even talk about emotions or feelings or how you are today. And I've also seen it where you work on something for months before you start to get to something that's helpful. So one of my friends years ago, they actually had to start very, very small with exercise to the point where they almost had to get fitter slowly to
Yep.
then be able to do it for long enough to then feel the benefit. So we're talking pre-benefit, you get up and you do it without any hints that you're going to improve or anything like that, but they just had to trust the process in a way because they knew that it would probably take a month or two for them to. It's almost like if you get a bit fitter, then you go for longer runs and then you start to feel the benefit of those longer runs. But you've got to start small. You've got to start with the thing that you can manage. And that's one of the difficult things to wrap your brain around almost. Is if you're not feeling the benefit, that doesn't mean you'll never feel the benefit. It just means you've got to progress first. You've got
Oh,
to see results in other ways first.
oh, that is so true. I mean, it fits in so many parts of our lives. Like when people say, I'm going to make a change, they're all in, right? And New Year's resolutions are a perfect example. Okay, what do they say? Within 14, 16 days, most people break their resolution because we have these grandiose ideas that we could do it all at once. And that's not realistic. I mean, if you've been living many, many years a certain way and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm going to hit that switch and everything's going to change, that is not realistic. So yeah, the small changes start to add up. Every day, if you can wake up and say, okay, I'm going to walk around my house for 5 minutes. That's huge. That's a step in the right direction. Or I'm going to get out of the bed and take a shower and get dressed today. If that's all you can get today, start there. And then praise yourself. That is so important. We tend to beat ourselves up and we are so hard on ourselves. We should be taking care of ourselves and appreciating ourselves. And if you make one small step today, that's a win and celebrate that win.
Definitely. And I think we need to highlight that a little bit more because people will get to a disheartened stage if they don't get results quickly enough, or maybe their mental health doesn't really get better for the first month, but you quit after 3 weeks and you'll never get there. It sounds like we need to establish things that we could do for whether it's mental health, physical health, getting us into the best state that we can, and then we'll start to see results because we find a way of doing them. We do them consistently. What are some of the things that you found beneficial so we can link mental health with the ability to get on a property ladder, a career ladder, anything like that? What are some of the things that we could do weekly or daily that will move people forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you need to do is make a list. And this is just me speaking, right? Like make a list of things you're not happy with and then prioritize. Is it you want a better job? Okay, if that's number one, then let's work on getting a better job. And that may, again, not instant gratification, that may include needing some type of training or education or an investment in that. If it's getting better housing, taking the time to actually start looking, talk to people, talk to some of the organizations in your community that can help you. If it's physical health, what we just talked about, like one step at a time, maybe walk a half an hour twice a week, and then the next week, 3 times a week, and keep gaining. But I think for each person, it's prioritizing. Sometimes when we get so down, and our energy level and mental level is so low, everything feels like we can't handle it. You have to start peeling back the layers and say, okay, what can I handle today? What's my priorities? And how am I going to get that priority? It's, check it off and then you can move to the next one, move to the next one. Just like I shared the story of the family who moved from 200% below federal poverty level into home ownership. I shared that took 5 years, right? That was not a fix overnight. It was, okay, what's your priorities? And let's start working towards it. So I think going into any lifestyle change that's going to improve your self-being, your self-care, your self-being, it's prioritizing what has to happen first, what's important to you, and then committing and then keep going down that list.
I'm actually curious about the 200% below to being a homeowner. I wonder, do you know how long it took for them to start to notice things were shifting, whether it's mental health, physical health, their financial situation to be able to own their home? How long would you say it would take for them to actually see progress and notice things happening?
Yeah, I can't exactly say, but I can share what I've observed. And we do an 8 week homeownership class. It's like a home buyers class, and it's 8 weeks. And I remember meeting this family. They were already somewhere in their journey. I don't know how far in. And I remember meeting this family at the beginning, and the father, who really was our client, was very disconnected and quiet and maybe feeling a certain way, like he doesn't fit in or he doesn't deserve. I'm not sure, but I could just feel that he didn't look secure and confident. Within 8 weeks, we had a graduation, and the smile and the energy and his family and his children running to him and him standing there with a certificate that he was ready to buy a home. That energy within 8 weeks had completely changed. That man looked like a proud husband, a proud father, a proud community member, and he looked like he was unstoppable. So I saw a change in 8 weeks, which is absolutely impressive. But I think It all goes back to believing in yourself. You got to get yourself in a space where you love yourself. Self-love is so important. We beat ourselves up every single day, but that's why celebrating all the wins are so important. Maybe make a wins board at home. It can be very private, but if you need a physical visual of your success, of your improvement, of your wins, then do it. Because when you believe in yourself that you can do it, you're going to start believing in so much more.
That's such a good way of seeing things as well, because it can feel like there's this great big chasm between where you are and where you want to be. And it can be so difficult to wrap your brain around this idea of you're only ever going to get there one step at a time. No one's going to pick you up and carry you to the destination. You've got to take it one step at a time. And sometimes you'll often hear, don't you, if you spend your time looking at the top and you look at where you are now, it will feel like you're never actually going to get there and never take the steps. And someone said to me one time, you just got to concentrate on what you've got to do today. Don't worry too much too far ahead because it will feel like this gap's just getting wider and wider. Just concentrate on two or three steps in front and just do those. And then just do the next two or three. You don't need to constantly obsess over the destination because you'll only concentrate on how big this gap is. That can dishearten people and make it feel like there's not much point in trying.
That is such a good point and absolutely true. One day at a time, one day at a time. Understand that some days are not going to be great, you know, but don't lose hope and get up and fight again the next day. The struggle, it's not a easy path for anyone, especially in this world today. And lean on people when you need to lean on people. Take a break when you need to take a break. Just don't give up on the entire path. Take it, like you said, Michael, one day at a time, step by step.
Have you ever come across anyone where they've shifted their mindset, whether it's the words that they've used that's changed, maybe they've gone from being disheartened to having a little bit more of a positive outlook. Maybe they've just ticked a few things off this list that you mentioned and that's changed everything for them. Have you noticed anyone that's had a change in outlook, a change in language, a change in their personality, and that's what's helped them?
Absolutely. Every single person who has met their goals that I have met, whether through work or my personal life, it's all been based on a mindset reset.
I do find it so fascinating when you start to see them tick these things off and they really start to achieve some of their life goals. Do you find that it's a combination of maybe achieving things that affects their confidence level, or do you think it's definitely the mindset first? Based off your experience, which way around do you think it is?
Based on my experience, I believe it's mindset first, right? If you believe you can, you're going to see the wins. If you believe it's never going to change, then you're never going to be able to see those small wins that help you get there and you'll give up. I really believe that mindset really kind of is the starting point for change. You have to believe and accept it. Whether it's easy or hard, you have to believe you can do it.
So let's talk about the work that you're doing over in South Florida then. How can people connect with you? Explain a little bit about what you can help people with, share how people can connect with you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes. So, as I mentioned, our company's name is Community Partners of South Florida. And our goal is to help people find self-sustainability and happiness. And we do that by focusing on mental health needs, housing needs, and their community needs. You can get in touch with us by going to our website, www.cpsfl.org, and that stands for Community Partners of South Florida. Like I said, our goal is that our community and residents are thriving. And so it takes a village. So we know we're not the only one doing this work. And we will do our best to connect anyone with the services they need that they can go home and they can be happy.
thanks so much for being a guest on the show. Those that are listening, feel free to subscribe, share the show, tell others, and also leave a review wherever you are listening into your podcasts. Kelly, this has been great. Thanks so much for taking the time, and I look forward to keeping in touch. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.